Hello, everyone. I'm with the Fantasy Almanac, and today we're going to be doing a fantasy football draft. We're going to be doing this on Underdog Fantasy. As you can see, we just started. I just got the number 2 pick, which I'm pretty excited about. Check out this draft. See if awesome. So I just got the number 2 pick, which means there's a couple guys I'm looking at right now. I would say obviously Jonathan Taylor, if he fell to me. Of course, I would have to take him. But then other than that, I think I pretty much have to go with Cooper Kupp. I would say Cooper Kupp's probably the number 1 option at wide receiver. Maybe you could go with the Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, or even a Christian McCaffrey here, but I would say I feel pretty comfortable going with Cooper Kupp, the best wide receiver season of all time. Really, what more can you ask for in a wide receiver? So the draft starting in 8 seconds. We're going to find out if I will end up getting a Jonathan Taylor type prospect, or if I will end up getting a Cooper Kupp. So mock draft is up right now. He's got 25 seconds. Let's see what he does. Seems he's taking the full clock here. He's got a hard decision to make, and he goes Jonathan Taylor. All right. So we go Cooper Kupp with the philosophy that in rounds 2 and 3, there are still great running backs that can kind of come back to us, namely like Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, even with the 6-game suspension. And if not, there are great running backs we could go in the 4th and 5th round, like a J.K. Dobbins, Breece Hall even. There's a lot of different running backs, as Christian McCaffrey goes at the 103. And Justin Jefferson goes at the 104. I'd say those are both great picks. I would say the top 5 is pretty much solidified as the top 4 goes. And then I would say far and away the 5th best player just goes off the board right now, Jamar Chase. I'd say after that, it's kind of like a teardrop. I would probably go Eckler there at 6, but there is definitely a teardrop. I would say at 7 and 8, it becomes a little more challenging. Me personally, I would be loving somebody like Stephon Diggs right here, and then you come back and get a Joe Mixon, again a Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, even a DeAndre Swift. There's a lot of great options in round 2 at running back, and that's why I like to go wide receiver, especially in this format where there's 3 wide receivers and a flex spot. Only 2 running back spots. It's something you really need to do, is hammer these wide receivers early. So Derrick Henry goes here at the 107. I think that's a good pick. You can't really go wrong with that. Defonte Adams at the 108. Wow. The first surprise of the draft, I would say. I still very much like Devontae Adams. I think he's a great player. But obviously going from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr is, without a doubt, a downgrade. It's impossible to argue anything else. Najee Harris goes at the 109, Diggs at the 110, and Dalvin at the 111. Wow, okay. So this draft has been pretty standard so far, I would say, with the exception of Devontae Adams going at the 108 and Diggs falling a little bit to the 110. Travis Kelce goes here at the 112 and CD at the 113. I would say that's a pretty standard 1-2 turn pickup, Travis Kelce and CD Lamb. CD Lamb, a wide receiver that hasn't really had too much success in the NFL, but people have been drafting him very highly, and I can definitely understand why. Amari Cooper gone. That whole situation's really good. I think the whole CD Lamb situation is something that could really explode, and he could become one of those Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson-like receivers in the future. Building off that, Mike Evans goes at the 202. A little early for Mike Evans. I personally, I definitely see the upside to Mike Evans, and he is in an offense where for the first 6 weeks of the season, he is going to be going, having most of the points all to himself. But this is a best ball format, and the weeks that really matter are week 16 and 17, because those are the weeks where you're going to be playing for the big bucks, the $2 million. So I see Mike Evans as a good pick, but I would prefer somebody like Deebo Samuel with a more stable role. Saquon Barkley goes off the board at 18. Joe Mixon at 19. Wow. Falling pretty far down the board. And now it's coming back to us. There's a few players I'd really like, namely Mark Andrews. I would take Aaron Jones if he falls. Leonard Fournette. Those are really the three players I would be looking at as Mark Andrews goes at pick 20. I would say those three players are just a tier above, whereas Alvin Kamara is now falling off a cliff with his 6-game suspension. But I would say if I can get either Leonard Fournette or Aaron Jones, I would be happy here. I'd be a little scared with Tyreek, although I do think Tua can maybe support him. I mean, so now we guaranteed. Oh man, I don't know. I think I have to go Aaron Jones here. I think building a team with Aaron Jones and Cooper Kupp to start. You rarely ever see Aaron Jones fall to pick 23. Usually he's going around pick 18. And as the first guy goes, mock draft, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Wow, doubles up with the Chargers wide receivers. Now here, I think I'm torn between two options, Leonard Fournette and T. Higgins. I do think T. Higgins is probably a better pick here, but I think I'm going to go Leonard Fournette because after this, there is a real tier break in terms of running back draft options. Obviously, you have Alvin Kamara as well, and Nick Chubb. Oh, wait, where did Nick Chubb go? Nick Chubb went early. Oh, wow, Nick Chubb went at pick 16. I totally missed that. But yes, after this, you have like a massive tier drop-off between running backs, besides maybe Alvin Kamara. But now with the 6-game suspension looming, I would say Alvin Kamara's draft stock has been plummeting. Kyle Pitts goes at 28. That's a little early for Kyle Pitts, but I've been seeing a lot more unique combinations of teams trying to draft him either really early, before his ADP, or way after his ADP if you can get lucky and get him. So sometimes I've seen him fall to pick 40. Sometimes I've seen him go all the way up to pick 26. I do like the talent that Kyle Pitts has, but I personally am going to be staying away from him at his ADP just because I think the situation is a little tough. I mean, he's going to be receiving like 100, probably realistically between 120 and 140 targets this year. He could even be more, but the quality of those targets are not going to be that great with Marcus Mariota. At least in my opinion, enough to justify drafting him at 28 or 29 when you could be getting like a Marquise Hollywood Brown, even James Conner. I think James Conner is being massively slept on as Marquise Hollywood Brown goes off the board, and Alvin Kamara falling all the way to the 308. I think Alvin Kamara soon is going to become a value in these like mid-round 3 type ranges. We all knew he was going to be suspended, whether that be 4 games or 6 games. But no matter what, Alvin Kamara was going to be suspended for his actions after what happened to Calvin Ridley, and potentially the suspension looming on Desean Watson. But Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended, and you kind of have to know that going in. But if you're drafting him in round 3, where he could be your running back 2, or even your running back 3, you have to be pretty happy getting a guy like that in round 3. And I would say the thing is his ADP. A lot of the teams drafted in Best Ball Mania were taking him at pretty much the 2-3 turn, or even before that. And now he's falling all the way almost to the end of the 3rd. And so it's something where he will start becoming a value, and that's what you want to see. So Cortland Sutton and DJ Moore go off the board. Honestly, me personally, I'm not a fan of Cortland Sutton. I think people always fall in love with those big body type wide receivers, but I think Cortland Sutton has not shown really any production since he came into the NFL. There's been 1 year where he had some decent production, but he did have Drew Lock at quarterback. But I would prefer the much younger, more able-bodied Jerry Judy. As his ADP has been falling, especially. You look at Jerry Judy, at one point he was going at pick 41, and it looked like he was only going up, and now he's just falling off a cliff. So I think right now my primary hope would be Jerry Judy, but there are still also, Justin Herbert here. I wouldn't mind. Patrick Mahomes here. I wouldn't mind, although I probably would try and veer away from. Even George Kittle here, I think could definitely be a viable option. I've kind of been staying away from Darren Waller because I think Devonte Adams is an absolute target hog. So I would be a little skeptical of taking a guy like Darren Waller, especially here when you have other guys like George Kittle on the board. And Kittle's in an offense that with a quarterback who could absolutely explode this season in Trey Lance. And also, let's go. Okay, so Jerry Judy falls to us here, so we're not even going to hesitate. We're not even going to think twice. Getting Jerry Judy at pretty much the 4-5 turn. I don't think you can ask for much more than that. And I think now that's making our Leonard Fournette pick look a lot better. Now there's two guys or three guys that I really like here. I would say Rashad Bateman's up there just because he's really the only weapon in his offense besides Mark Andrews that's going to be receiving a lot of volume. He's pretty much the wide receiver one with Marquise Hollywood-Brown gone. George Kittle's still definitely on the board. I was going to say Breece Hall. Breece Hall would have been a great option just to fill out my running back room. And that way I probably would not have had to draft another running back. But at this point, I would say DK Metcalf is also a good value here as well. But me personally, I'm not a fan of DK Metcalf at this point with quarterback Drew Lock coming in there. I mean, Drew Lock was horrible. One of the reasons why I'm such a huge fan of Jerry Judy is because Drew Lock looked like one of the most atrocious quarterbacks out there. I forget the exact stat, but I think it was only 53% of Jerry Judy's balls were even deemed catchable, and he had a catch percentage of 48%. So he was catching pretty much every ball he could. And now he's going over to Seattle, and I just don't think he can sustain an offense even with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and that's why I would probably veer away from a situation like that. Here, David Montgomery goes off the board. That's a great pick. Juju I like, but I probably wouldn't have taken him over some other wide receivers here. I do like Brandon Cooks a lot. I think Brandon Cooks is a great wide receiver. Chris Godwin, potentially. Bateman and Mooney, I probably would have taken over Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't think I'm going to be owning too much Juju this year. I think I only have a few shares. But I do like guys like Brandon Cooks and Chris Godwin. Rashad Bateman should be going off the board any minute, as well as Lamar Jackson and Kyler just came off the board here, which is to be expected. And Jalen Hurts, wow. So these quarterbacks seem to be getting pushed up the board a little bit, which is something that we may have to be kind of concerned about. I think at this point, waiting on quarterback might be the best option here. Because if they're getting pushed up the board like this, it's not good to just try and hunt for and reach on a good quarterback like this when I could be taking Joe Burrow this round, or I could be taking the combination of Russell Wilson and Trey Lance in the next 2 rounds. And then I still can only have to take two quarterbacks, which gives me a lot of flexibility. Rashad Bateman goes off the board, pick 59. Dobbins 60, Amari Cooper 61, Gibson 62. It's a little early for Gibson. Usually, especially recently, you've been seeing Gibson go a fair amount later. I think Gibson is a very capable running back, but with the Commanders drafting Brian Robinson, I think in the 3rd round of this year's draft, it is a little bit scary. They also re-signed J.D. McKissick, so I think there is a little bit of a scary situation. But seeing him drop off from probably a running back that would have been drafted, I figure around where Cam Akers is probably, to now being drafted here, I think it's a massive drop off. Same thing with Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is still on the board somehow. It just goes off. But Josh Jacobs is another running back whose situation hasn't really gotten too much worse. He was receiving all the receiving game, 60 targets last year. And now he has Devonte Adams, who should hopefully clear the box for him. They're not going to stop running the ball. They did draft Zamir White in this draft, but at this point, Zamir White is most likely a depth option. Josh Jacobs is a first-round pick. He's got first-round draft capital. He's got like all the talent in the world. And now they have a new head coach who is utilizing him in the way he should be utilized. Oh man, here we kind of have a dilemma. There's a lot of really talented wide receivers on the board, but there really isn't any other talented tight end on the same level as Dalton Schultz. Although I don't really like drafting two tight ends like this, I think at this point it's kind of necessary to double up, get him behind ADP, and then I'm comfortable taking any of these wide receivers afterwards, or even Russell Wilson. I think Russell Gage is fine. I don't really like Adam Thielen, but I don't think I own any shares of Adam Thielen. And I'm off Devonta Smith too. I think he's now the wide receiver 2 in a team that's going to be running the ball probably, if not the most in the league, then almost the most in the league. So I've been fading Devonta Smith. Adam Thielen, I do this every year with Adam Thielen. I'm always consistently wrong on him. I'm like, this is the year he's going to fall off. He's so touchdown dependent. But every year he comes and he gets 10 touchdowns and it blows me away. So, but I still can't consider taking Adam Thielen at this point. I think right here, right now, I'm torn between Drake London and Michael Thomas. I think both are great options. I guess if I had to choose Drake London, I would point to him in a similar boat as Kyle Pitts. But the thing is, you're taking Kyle Pitts at pick 30, whereas Drake London, you're taking him at pick 74. He's in an offense all to himself, pretty much, with just him and Kyle Pitts. He should be walking into, at minimum, 110 targets, I would say. I mean, where else are the targets going to go? So I think Drake London here, although he's not going to be the most efficient wide receiver, at pick 74 compared to pick 30, when they should be putting up fairly similar stat lines, I think it's a much more tolerable pick. So now I ended up with my team so far, which is Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette at running backs, both at values. I think those are two good picks. Cooper Kupp, number 1 wide receiver, Jerry Judy at a value, and Drake London at a value. And then we ended up with George Kittle and Dalton Schultz so far at tight end. I think I should probably turn it on this. I think that so far the draft has been going pretty well. As Devonta Smith goes off the board right now. I guess just while we have time, I'll talk over some of the teams. Let me just pop out the menu really quick. All right, so there's definitely some interesting teams here. Just taking a look. I would say mock draft team is pretty interesting. I mean, he doubled up with the Chargers wide receivers, and then taking Breece Hall for extremely high upside. I really can't blame him on that. I think I'm surprised Breece Hall isn't honestly going higher. I mean, you figure he could command almost the entire workload of the New York Jets from pretty much the onset. He's a very talented running back. They drafted him at 35. They traded up to get him, too. And Michael Carter, a 4th-round pick. Breaks my heart. I did love Michael Carter, but there's really nothing you could do with Breece Hall coming in. I mean, you should be taking almost the whole workload immediately. And then Padma Holmes, great quarterback. Can't complain about that, especially getting him at a value. Russell Gage as well. I think Russell Gage for the first few weeks of the season while Chris Godwin's out is going to provide a ton of support for the team. And then he takes Russell Wilson there, 2 QBs, so he's feeling pretty comfortable. Probably won't take another one, which is good for us. That means we can wait. We don't have to take a QB at 95. We can wait and take one at 98. It's Hyundai. I like his team a fair amount. I mean, I'm pretty off Darren Waller, but he's got the stack of Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, which you can't be mad about. Tyreek and McCaffrey. If McCaffrey's healthy and is healthy for the whole season, there's nobody who could stop him. So he's got 2 good running backs. The reason why I think this team, that I don't love this team, I guess. Actually, it's a good team. I'd say. Scooby, he's got Justin Jefferson, Javonte Williams. I do think the Javonte Williams pick is intriguing. Me personally, I'm not too big of a fan of Javonte, but in a league where if you're taking upside into account, the winner wins $2 million, the winner of everything, you advance on, win $2 million. Javonte Williams is in a situation where if Melvin Gordon gets injured, he's going to be receiving a ridiculous workload. I mean, we're talking probably, if he was the starter this whole season and they had nobody else, like, I don't know, 16 touchdowns, probably like 1,800 total yards, and there are very few running backs that can match that. Very, very few. So I think he's a very interesting player. All right, so I'm going to start covering the back end of the board again. Tom Brady goes off. Oh, man, it's looking pretty dry at QB at this point. Sky Moore goes off the board. Michael Thomas, Kadarius Toney. These receivers are getting pushed up too. It's receivers and quarterbacks. So we should be looking at some running back value here potentially as I minimize the screen. And yes, we are. I mean, I would say there's really a ton of value on the board right now. I don't think I could justify taking Tony Pollard here. I don't think I can do it. Even though this is massive value, I think I pretty much have to go Kenneth. Oh my God, this is tough. They really put us in a bind here. Oh man, I don't know. I think I might have to go Aaron Rodgers, honestly. Tony Pollard here. I think Tony Pollard's the right move, the right play. And then go Aaron Rodgers. As much as it pains me to do, I don't really like reaching on players too often. But I think now we're pretty much set at running back. We have everybody we could ever ask for. If Zeke goes down, Tony Pollard could honestly feasibly be a top 5 running back. He already proved that he has been almost a superior running back to Zeke in the last year, or at least very similar in scale. And again, more running backs still on the board. This is kind of usual to see Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris still on the board. Kenneth Walker, I'm a little surprised about. Kenneth Walker's been falling, but I didn't realize he would fall this much. I think Aaron Rodgers here is the best pick. I need a QB, and although I hate to reach on one when there's still running back value on the board, I think by the time I get back, the tier drop-off between Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr is pretty substantial, in my opinion. And then after that, the quarterback room just gets bone dry. I mean, Kirk Cousins is good, but he's not somebody you want as your QB1. Same thing with Fields. I guess Fields is possible with rushing upside. Tua has weapons around him, so I mean, it's possible like he could perform decently well. But again, no rushing upside. Trevor Lawrence was absolutely abysmal last year. You should expect that to go up, in year 2 with a better coach. But Jameis Winston, Matt Ryan, no rushing upside. He looked like at absolute best, and I'm being very generous here. I was a Cordarrelle Patterson owner last year. He looked like a below league average QB. He could still fit it into tight windows, but he just doesn't have the arm strength to be a good QB anymore. Daniel Jones has the rushing upside. I'm a Giants fan, so I'm a little biased, but I think Daniel Jones could be a good pick here. I mean, you have a new coaching staff coming in. Saquon Barkley with 2 years healthy, and they did draft a wide receiver in round 2, as well as beef up the O-line. So I think it's possible Daniel Jones could be a value as well as Zach Wilson. These are both guys with a little bit of rushing upside. Daniel Jones has a fair amount of rushing upside. And the thing is, this year, you look at quarterbacks at the bottom. Ryan Tannehill has got nothing to prove. Jared Goff has something to prove, so I guess it's possible. Carson Wentz too. A lot of these quarterbacks don't really have anything to prove, I guess Mitch. It's like different. Like, Zach Wilson's not being relied on at this point to like win championships. Same thing with Mac Jones. So I think at this point right now, like Daniel Jones is the best option because it's a make or break year, and he pretty much needs this. So I'd say getting back to the draft really quick. pull up the draft board again. So I'd say just getting back to the draft real quick. Of course, now there's a huge run on running backs because running backs fell for a pretty substantial amount of time. We were able to get Tony Pollard there at a supreme value. Then Kareem Hunt, Devin Singletary. Wow, Damian Harris falls all the way to the 104 and Kenneth Walker the 105. Oh my God, that's great value for the interrogator in Chiefs Kingdom. Oh my God, 3 quarterbacks in a row. I don't even know how you say that. Gyre shirt? 3 quarterbacks in a row. Wow. I mean, that is absolutely wild. So, good thing I guess we took Aaron Rodgers now at this point because we're staring some pretty terrible options down. So we can kind of wait, give it some time for our next QB because after Justin Fields, there is a pretty huge tier drop off. I mean, I guess I could potentially consider taking someone like Kirk Cousins, but at this point, I'm not really too convinced that he would be the solution for us, especially no stacks or anything. There really wouldn't be too much of a point to not reach, but I think there are other positions of need that I could take. Right now, I have 3 wide receivers: Cooper Kupp, Jerry Judy, and Drake London. I think taking another one of those would be very good right about now. I'm hoping to get a Christian Watson. Christian Watson would be amazing. I mean, with the way the wide receivers have been going off the board, I'm a little nervous, but Christian Watson's somebody I don't understand. He's been falling down draft boards. The Green Bay Packers traded up to get him. I understand there are reports coming out of camp that he hasn't been as strong of a player as they expected, and he hasn't been playing well, and there's been drops. But he's a rookie. I mean, Jamar Chase had the same issue last year, and look at what happened with Jamar Chase. I mean, obviously Christian Watson's not the same talent level as somebody like Jamar Chase, but Christian Watson still is with arguably, almost non-arguably, a top 5 quarterback of all time, and he could very, very easily ascend to be the wide receiver 1. As long as it's Hyundai doesn't draft him, I'm definitely taking him here. And even if he does, there's still 2 other wide receivers here that I really like as good options for this team. I would say Christian Watson's great, though. I would say Michael Gallup is really strong as well. Although he's going to miss the start of the season, which, oh no. Please don't auto-draft. Please don't auto-draft Christian Watson. No! Oh, man. Alright, so we do end up getting sniped on Christian Watson. So I think our next best pick is probably Michael Gallup. I think Michael Gallup is at least a pretty capable wide receiver. I think he had over 1,000 yards, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, before the CD pick. And now Amari Cooper is gone. He's given the room to operate as a wide receiver too. So what more can you ask for other than that? I would say there's some other good picks here. I really would love Rondale Moore right about now. I think that would be a great pick. Especially because Rondale Moore is somebody who will be pretty consistent, and I think high upside guys are really good to take like later. But I think Rondale Moore will provide those boom weeks, but also should be more consistent, especially with DeAndre Hopkins missing 6 games, and we do end up taking him here. Kirk Cousins would be the other guy I was considering, but at this point it is possible that I could wait and just take Daniel Jones, and I'm pretty much set at tight end. I don't need to take a third tight end at all. I think my running backs are really strong as well, so I mean I could justify taking maybe 1 or 2 more, but I think the overall build here is pretty set at 3 QBs, 5 running backs, 8 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. I think that's about fair. Alright, so let's just continue talking about the draft a little bit. There's the most recent couple rounds. To get sniped on Christian Watson, which is sad. I still have no idea why he's falling. He's fallen about 20 picks in terms of ADP. He was going at pick 100, now 115. He fell to 118 here. I mean, that's just mind-boggling to me. Like, I don't understand. Guys like Tyler Boyd. I mean, Tyler Boyd does have a nice role and a very strong offense. But somebody like Kenny Galladay, he's going to be... He didn't score a touchdown last year. He's probably not going to be the X factor we all expected him to be, from that 1 year in Detroit. I just don't see it. Tim Patrick goes off the board. Ronald Jones, Madison, Myers, Kirk Cousins, Rondell Moore. I do like the Ronald Jones pick a lot, especially where he got him. I think Ronald Jones has some pretty good ability to, especially if Clyde goes down, take over the starting role. And maybe even take over the starting role just from natural talent. I feel like Ronald Jones was always a guy who was very hyped up. Back when he was first drafted, and now he's been in the league and hasn't really panned out. But the Kansas City Chiefs picked him up on a 1-year deal, and they're giving him a chance. I mean, worst comes to worst, he doesn't work out, but at pick 126, taking a guy of that talent level in an offense that good, I think it's hard to pass up. Mike Gesicki and Pat Freiermuth go off the board here. That's something we really want to see. I'd like to see, hopefully, tight ends get pushed up here as much as possible. The more tight ends that get pushed up, honestly, the better. We really would like tight ends to get pushed up. Jameson Williams going all the way at the 131. Jameson Williams is a guy, I think it is his value a couple of months back when he was being drafted at like 115. I don't really think he made too much sense there because obviously he has the injury. He probably won't be back. He might miss, I don't know, like the first 6 weeks of the season. But now falling to the 131 when he has all that talent, I think it's a fair value to try and take him somewhere like that. Here again, I think I want to take more wide receivers. I think hopefully somebody like a Jamison Crowder falls, because I think Jamison Crowder could have a nice role in the Buffalo offense. Obviously, he's attached to Josh Allen. What more can you ask for? And Johan Dotson, another great player, just recently drafted, pick 16. I mean, when you have draft capital that high, and you're going this low, in my opinion, and there we go, awesome. 2 tight ends get pushed up off the board ahead of their ADP. Or Robert Tonyan, at least, is ahead of his ADP. And now we have, hopefully, as long as we don't get sniped on both of these wide receivers, we should have our pick at hopefully one of the two, and then it's potential that they can make it back to us. Joshua Palmer going that far ahead. I did hear he was getting a bigger role, but wow, that was pretty high up. That's higher than I've seen him in a while. So yes, now it is possible that we can get one of at least Jameson Crowder, Jahan Dotson. This guy only has 4 wide receivers. It's Hyundai, so I'm assuming it's possible he could take a wide receiver here. He probably isn't the market for too much else, unless he wants to take a running back. But he does go Jameson Crowder here, sniping us yet again. So we're going to go ahead and take Jahan Dotson. Again, a rookie player. Going into an offense with Carson Wentz, who can support viable fantasy options, as we saw with Michael Pittman, and his time back in Philadelphia as well. Although I don't think he's a great pick. At 143, I would consider him a value. So I think it's an okay pick. I'm fairly happy with it. Here I'm kind of faced with the dilemma. I think 2 is probably the way to go here, because quarterbacks got pushed up a ton, and I think taking a guy like Tua, when he does have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and even Gesicki on his team, it's probably the right option here, so I think I will go Tua. Especially with a pretty huge... I'm not really too big on Devontae Parker coming into a new offense. Even though the wide receiver room in New England is really weird right now, too. I mean, there's none of them are good. All of them are mid. You really don't know who's going to emerge out of a room like that. You got Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers. They just drafted Tyquan Thornton. Even N'Keal Harry, they drafted a couple years back. I feel like the Patriots are really not that good at drafting wide receivers. It's been a huge weakness of theirs. Uh, Probably the only weakness they've had since Belichick's came in. And they haven't really been the greatest at drafting wide receivers, but Devontae Parker does go at pick 149, which I would consider a value. Uh, Alex O off the board. I personally don't get the Alex O hype at all. I think Alex O, people always hype him up to be a beast, but we haven't seen him play. People are always saying, "Oh, they traded away Noah Fant. That means they have complete faith in Alex O." They also traded away 2 first-round picks, which I'm sure they didn't want to give up, but to get a guy like Russell Wilson, you got to give up a lot. I'm sure Noah Fant was probably just like, "Oh, okay." Or the Noah Fant throwing was probably just like, "Oh, we need to bolster this up to make a good trade." They probably weren't really thinking about their tight end position when acquiring arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league. Not really too heavily, at least. And they did draft a tight end in the draft this year. I'm forgetting his name, but with those factors combined, I think it's pretty hard to justify drafting Alex O, especially when their wide receiver room is so deep, too. Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, who they drafted in the second round last year. Yeah, I would say, oh my god, a lot of QBs ended up going off the board here. I would say that Tua starting to look like a pretty good pick. Quarterbacks in this draft in general are just getting pushed up the board. Matt Ryan, Daniel Jones, Jameson Winston, Zach Wilson. A lot of these quarterbacks are getting pushed up. I guess, looking around, you see guys like Jalen Tolbert, Corey Davis, guys who really aren't going to be good producers for you. And then you see other guys like Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Jameis, who have the potential to at least fill your quarterback spot for 3 or 4 weeks, hopefully. And that's the same philosophy I have with Tua. I mean, he's not a great quarterback option, but he should fill a spot for Aaron Rodgers for at least a few weeks. My one gripe with this team is that there is no rushing upside with my quarterbacks. I would have liked if Trey Lance or somebody was able to fall to me here. Or I am a big fan of drafting Jalen Hurts as well. But with the quarterback values coming off so early here, it was just pretty much impossible. Got 5 picks left, pretty much wrapping up all the players that are still, somewhat talented in the league. There's 2 players I like. Wow, Cameron Breit is this high up now. I've actually been drafting a lot of Cameron Breit. I was drafting Cameron Breit back when his ADP was like 211. But I guess I'll get into that in a sec. I'm drafting Tyrion Davis-Price here. The reason why is because they spent a 3rd round pick on him. The 49ers running back room is always confusing. So my philosophy on it is to always draft whichever one I can get at the biggest value. Look at the Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell debate last year. Everyone was saying Trey Sermon. There wasn't even any talk of Elijah Mitchell. And now Elijah Mitchell is taking over as the RB1. And when everybody thinks Elijah Mitchell is taking off as this huge RB1, boom, here comes in the second pick they made in the draft, Tyrion Davis-Price, who could easily take over as at least like a fairly decent running back option. So that's why I'm drafting Tyrion Davis-Price. And they do like to run a bell cow approach whenever they have a running back that they like. And they can produce pretty valuable running back performances. So I'll take whoever is least valuable. And then with my second pick, I'm going George Pickens. I think George Pickens, obviously the talent's there. The Steelers have been ranting and raving about him in training camp, so can't ask for much more than that. Also, the wide receiver room isn't as crowded as I thought it would be for the Steelers. They got rid of Juju, they got rid of James Washington. The only 2 receivers now ahead of him are Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, yes, he is a target hog. So is Najee Harris, unfortunately. And Chase Claypool is at least talented enough to be a target hog. But George Pickens, they drafted in the 2nd round again this year. They definitely obviously like him. They see something in him. So I think it's a good pick to get a guy like George Pickens all the way at pick 170. When if there is an injury, he's the type of guy where he'll have league winning upside because that's really what you're shooting for. I guess next I'll talk about Cameron Breit. Cameron Breit, I was drafting him when his value was his ADP was 211 because I was thinking again, this is for league winning upside. If you're getting a guy who is going to be quarterbacking with Tom Brady, or his quarterback is Tom Brady, and he has enough enough value to where he's going to be there with just him and Mike Evans, at least for a reasonable portion of the season. Of course, Russell Gage as well. But Tom Brady always loves his tight ends. And to get a guy like Cameron Breit, where if Gronk retires, Cameron Breit will be reaping so many benefits with the last pick in your draft, I was like, I'll take this every time. I mean, Cameron Breit is immensely valuable that way. He wasn't even being drafted in some leagues. So I was taking Cameron Breit if I needed a third tight end every time. Or, if I waited on tight ends, I was trying a very much wait on tight end approach. I was drafting him everywhere. And now he's flown up to the average of pick 169, goes here at 180. Now David Bell goes at pick 181, Kendrick Bourne 182, Raheem Mostert. I think the whole Miami situation is pretty interesting at running back, honestly pretty much everywhere. I think at this point I would probably want to take somebody like Chase Edmonds, as he is the highest paid player in that offense, or the highest paid running back in that offense. So, I mean, I always try and follow the money trails with I guess, anybody but the 49ers. The 49ers are just impossible to decide, so I'll take what's cheaper. But with the Dolphins, they did bring in Chase Edmonds to be what I would imagine to be a pretty big role. They do have other running backs, so I would generally stay away from a situation like that. But here Mostert has a chance to start. Speaking of guys with chances to start, Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram is at least an interesting pick if you think Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended 6 games, which he most likely will. There's only a couple players that could really start there. Other running backs are pretty terrible. You get Tony Jones, who's getting all that preseason hype, and I think has potential to start, even though he's really not that talented, just because the situation is so dire. Mark Ingram, obviously 32-year-old veteran. You don't really have to worry with him. You're not getting any great production, but he'll at least do something. As we take AJ Green here, I think AJ Green, although he is 33 years old, although he is injury prone, 6 games without DeAndre Hopkins is something you can't overlook. He's now going to be the wide receiver 3 in, again, one of the most efficient offenses in the league. You can't really ask for much more than that. Now here, although I hate to do this, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this one. Desean Watson. I have to do it. Oh, our hearing concludes. Wow. As Cabot reported Monday, the NFL is aiming for an indefinite ban of at least 1 year. Alright, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but Desean Watson is a player that if he does end up playing for this team, will give it the biggest amount of upside. Drafting a guy like Desean Watson at his absolute lowest point, his lowest value, you can't ask to see any value lower for Desean Watson than where he is right now. Drafting a guy like that, where if he ends up not getting suspended in any way, or suspended a few games, will immediately go back up to ADP of around 100. I mean, I could see him floating around with Matt Stafford, Tom Brady even. His value will definitely go up immensely if he doesn't get suspended for that long. So that's why I think that the philosophy with Desean Watson is there. So now we pretty much have, 2 picks left? 1 pick left. And at 215, I think there's a couple ways I could go. I probably should go running back here. I'd hope. I mean, there's pretty much no way, but a guy like D'Onta Foreman here is possible. Even like an Eno Benjamin. I mean, there really isn't like too much value at the running back position here. I'd say wide receiver is probably better. I do like going relatively thin at the running back spot, especially with the running backs I have right now. I mean, Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette should maintain the bulk, and Aaron Jones does have those boom weeks. Realistically looking at it, I probably should go running back. There wasn't really any receivers I could justify taking over a running back here. I mean, James Washington would be the one. OBJ, I don't really want to have to worry about, tearing his ACL in the Super Bowl, as everybody saw. So I think at this point I'd probably stray away. Laviska Shenault is somebody I do not want to touch at all. Guy had absolutely zero competition last year for targets and still found a way to be complete trash. I mean, if that doesn't tell you a wide receiver is terrible, I honestly don't know what does. Maybe a guy like Romeo Doubs here. Again, if I were drafting Christian Watson, I would probably be trying to pair him with Romeo Doubs every time. Even if not, I think Romeo Doubs is a good pick. But right now, I still don't know how Devonta Foreman's on the board, but I would probably want to go someone like him because he's one of the few here that will get a bell cow role if the lead running back goes down. That's pretty much all you're hoping for here. Hassan Haskins, never going to fill in for Derrick Henry. I mean, none of these running backs. Dearness Johnson, it would take a miracle. I know it happened last year, but it would take an absolute miracle for both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb to go down. Sony Michel, again, running back room too crowded. Chris Evans, I don't get why Chris Evans is going above Samaje Perine. Samaje Perine last year, when Joe Mixon didn't play, Samaje Perine pretty much got every single carry and touch out of the backfield. I don't get why Chris Evans is going above Samaje. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm not really sure. But yeah, barely active right here. He got 17 attempts all of last season. I guess maybe the receiving role, maybe. Every valuable touch. Because he has gotten a fair amount of receptions. But Samaje Perine also fits that mold. So right here, I'm probably going to go to D'Onta Foreman. And then I think pretty much done. So let's just see who I get. And then yeah, thank you guys. This is my first YouTube video. I'm hoping to draft every day, make some good fantasy draft content. Whether that be through running back rankings, wide receiver rankings, quarterback rankings. Please leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, everything. The whole shebang. If you liked any of my content. If you think I'm a fucking idiot for one of my picks, if you think I'm really dumb for my Leonard Fournette pick or Tony Pollard or anything, please leave it down in the comments below. I want to hear every single take that I possibly can, so that way I'm as informed as possible to make good draft decisions for you guys. And this has been the Fantasy Almanac, and I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day.